Right, so welcome back to Adventure 82. We don't normally start with me, but on occasion we do at home. On this occasion, it's because through the magical power of editing, halfway through this video, my t-shirt is going to change. The reason for that is entirely Sony's. So when I was videoing this, we had a technical issue, and Sony's wireless microphone thing that I tend to use. I was going to show you, but I think I've left it downstairs. Died. So I had the entirety of the video with no sound apart from the very beginning. So the first two clips, I'll be in a blue t-shirt, and the rest of it, I'm in a completely different t-shirt. So yeah, just to give you a heads up as to why it looks a bit unusual, but the information's still there. And I still think it's a really good video, if I'm honest. I think it's worked out quite well considering I had to film it over, taking the gap in between about 4 days as I'm editing this now. So this will be about 5 days worth of work by the time you guys see it, but I don't mind. So yeah, enjoy and have fun. Right, so welcome back to Adventure 82. We're at a castle. We haven't done one for a while. So we're doing a castle. So today we're at Middleham. If you remember, we did Middleham High Moor a couple of weeks back. Today, Middleham Castle. Off we go. Right, so some history on the place, obviously, which is what we normally do. So Middleham Castle is thought to have started being built round about 1170, so like kind of late 12th century, if you like. They don't know an exact date for it, but there's no records of it before the 1200s. So, and the only clue they have about the 1170 date is the fact of one of the towers, which is now inaccessible, has a leaf symbol on it, which was a classic decoration from the 1100, from the late 12th century. So that's where the date comes from. The castle was owned by the Neville family, who were are most famous for being the most powerful family during the War of the Roses between Yorkshire and Lancashire. Over the years, like most castles, it's had many guises. So come 1388, it was expanded, and then further expanded on again in the 1500s to make it the kind of size it, well, I say the size it is now. It's obviously a ruin, as you've seen, but still there's a lot of it standing. It's also, most famous claim to fame is it was a childhood home of the future King Richard III. So let's go have a look exactly what Richard III grew up in. Also, unusually for a castle, it's got one tower that's just a dedicated toilet block. It's just a tower of toilets. That's very odd. I've not come across that before. But definitely an interesting castle. Right, so as I've explained, this is round two of filming Middleham Castle. So yeah, there's two stages to the castle. So you've got this central section, which was the original castle built back in the 1100s, and then you've got this one. That was the bit that was added on as time went on, so this would have been all built in sections. Some more evidence of that once we get to the top, because I can show you when we're looking down from above. But we previously mentioned Richard III and the fact that this is where he grew up until the point that he was what most people class now as a teenager. So they've got this of him here. So this is what he would have looked like although these statues are given to flattery, so, but this has got symbolism with it, so I thought I'd read you the plaque. So it says here, since Richard III's death in 1485, there has been much debate about his character, appearance and actions. A demon on his left shoulder represents the challenges Richard faced during his lifetime and his later portrayal, and a legendary basilisk on his back reflects his deadly reputation. The basilisk hand and demon tail meet the Yorkshire sun and rose on his chest. He stands on a white boar and a heraldic symbol of Richard and his followers. So there's your symbol of Yorkshire. You can see there, and this is what they're on about. The demon and the tail on his back. He was very hit and miss apparently, Richard III. Nice 1 minute, take your head off the next, quite literally. So, of all the things to be famous for, Middleham's got a few, but the strangest, by far, for Middleham Castle, the strangest one by far, is the fact that it had 36 toilets, or latrines as they were called back then. You can identify them because they're little slots in a wall, and then they look like a pit that falls below floor level, but I'll explain that to you once we see one. This particular board, I'm not going to show you all the boards because that defeats the purpose of the video, but this one's useful because it shows you how much the castle has changed. So, as I explained before, this section here, the in the middle section, that's the original part of the castle, and then the outer section was built in sections later on as I added bits onto it. Now, if you look at this section here, these two bits, you can relate that to this picture here, and this is what I would like to show you right now. You see here that there's a bridge right there, and up here you can see there's a doorway, so that's where that bridge would have gone, and it would have got across into this building. Now the interesting thing about that is on this side, obviously you have the doorway and the little window. There's your little window, and of course the doorway would have been inside the bridge. On this side, however, which is this building here, the doorway is missing. So I'm not quite sure where that's gone. The other interesting thing about this one is the way the kitchen was laid out, which is just through here. So that's what we're going to look at next. Right, so we're now inside the kitchen. The kitchen was based within two separate rooms essentially, but the layout is quite clever. And the kitchen was, in this castle, and it's in most castles, was a very, very busy place. But everything's got a reason. Starting from the basics, like this, which should have been kind of their modern day version of a bin, so waste, rubbish, all went down there, to these small, very high up, there's one even above that, narrow windows there, as you can see all the way along. All these narrow, tall, narrow windows that are high up, they're high up because they allow the steam from cooking, etc. out, but they also stop pests from getting in and harassing, messing, ruining the food. The other interesting thing with this particular castle as well is its layout of its fireplaces, its cooking. So you can see here you've got three arches. One was clearly to get between the two rooms, which is here. These two look like they may well have been bread ovens. I'm not so sure about that, but the one that I do like is this. So this would have been a main cooking oven. This is why I'm of the opinion that these two were probably smaller versions of the oven, but this was definitely an oven. And the way this would work is you'd light your fire here. You can see where they've got a marked section in the middle for doing the fire. And then here, you would have had your pots and your pans on top here. You would have they probably would have had like a big spit roast or something on here. That's what you can see, these holes here, the square ones. You can see it more clearly on this side. In the waffle, there would have been supports for spit roasts, for your chicken, pork, that kind of thing. But you can see here, the chimney's in the middle, and the wall goes across the middle of the chimney. That's because what I find quite interesting about this particular castle is it's a double oven essentially, so you can cook on that side and then you come over here and you can also cook on this side, because this is the other side of the same oven. And there's the other side of the chimney, which I think is a very ingenious idea. And again, you can see more clearly on this side as well, the holes for the spit roast, the pots and pans. These obviously, you don't want to be putting these on the floor, the pots and pans, when you finish cooking. So that's what these little round bits on the floor are for. You picked up your hot pot, your hot pan, you put it there. And then you would sort it out from there. You can see here as well the remains at the far end there of a staircase would have gone up onto this upper floor, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. And that upper floor would have been what they called the Great Hall, or for a more simplistic term, this would have been the dining room above us. So that's what we're going to go look at next. But the architecture in here is amazing. And you can see here how the wall curves out. That's because you would have had an arch here. Originally, it would have had an arch support all the way across, and then you can see the flooring was quite a bit higher up from the arch. You can see the layers. And you can see the same on the other side. If I take you down to where the doorway is, you can see in the other half of the kitchen as well. I had a similar thing in between the windows, because of course I have more windows in here. So it would have had the support arch there, another one there. In fact, there's quite a bit of the corner support arch on this one left over there, up there. And that would have been the layout, and again, a doorway that clearly hasn't had anybody go in it for absolute donkeys up there. But I'll take you to go see the dining room next. But anybody who's not unsure about what these little holes are like this, these would have been like a bread cooker. So you would have had your fire in the bottom here, light your fire, let it heat up really hot, and then you would cook your bread on this stone the same way you would do, like, say, a stone-baked pizza. Similar kind of thing, that's what they bake their bread on. And that's what that little hole over there between the cookers would have been. That would have been another one. Right, so we're now at the top, looking over the kitchen. This would have been the Great Hall at one point in time. So we've obviously got our own floor level here today. If you look at the sides here, you can see now that where that little lip is sticking out from the wall, that would have been the original floor level. And what you can see over at the back there is an example of how those arches would have come across, had a middle pillar, and that would have been all the way along. That arch kind of shape would have come all the way along, and that's what it was supported then the rest of the stone for the flooring. So you would have had quite a thick floor. It's a good what, foot and a half, maybe 2 foot deep of flooring all the way along, and that would have covered all this area and then behind us as well. And you can see here also on this side, again, because it's going to be somewhere people are eating, they've got another toilet there, and then this hole here, I'm guessing, is where they would have had a second toilet, because you can see how high the floor level would have been for that area. And that would have been another drainage hole for the toilet again. So toilet would have been about the same level as the floor. You'd have sat there, would have been like an alcove, I'm guessing. And then you would have sat there, gone to the toilet, and the other side is where like the poo and stuff would fall out, and then some other poor sod's job to go around and pick it up. But this castle is not as intact as some other castles we've looked at, but it does give you an awful lot of insight into the cooking methods that were employed at the time. Right, so we're now at the top, and what you can see here, this is the 3 apartment block that was built by the Neville family back in the day, the luxury apartment blocks. So you can see here you would have had 3 apartments, one here, then you have your courtyard in the middle with a little circle, Then you have another apartment here. I'm guessing that would have been an upper one, because that circle looks like it would have been some sort of like old school cider press, or that might have also been part of the courtyard. And you've got 1, 2 there, so at least 3. So you can see the little alcoves. You've got your doorways, those would have been the toilets, the latrines. You've got your little kind of darkened hole section here, and then 2 more there and 1 slightly below, and you've got 1 over the far side there. Those would have been like your fireplaces, keep you warm. And you can see here there would have been a patrol section on the top wall for guarding things, but the only section left now is that one point there. And then you have that block over there, which would have been just a toilet block. It had nothing but latrines in it. And if we go up the top end, I think this is what best illustrates the old style fortifications that existed for the castle. So we're now in the original section of the castle in the middle, where the archway is there and all this that's going around it. That's the second part. Those are the bit that was built in sections I've mentioned before. On the outside here, you can see you've got a ditch. Now that ditch goes all the way along here. And back in the day, that would have been their main defence, would have been this ditch when the castle was originally built. As time went on, it got modernised, rebuilt, etc. So this section here, which we'll go down and have a look at in a moment, that was where the original entrance was to the castle. It wasn't here. That entrance was built later on. So we'll have a look at that. But the other thing that shows you here is that this is actually quite low down compared to the land around it. If you look, the land that it's looking over is actually slightly higher than it, and in some places out in the distance much higher than it. But there was a reason for that, and there was actually a fortified reason for that. It was very strategical. So from the top of the castle, because of the layout, you can see who's coming and when they're coming, because you can see so far in the distance. The idea of it being slightly lower down in the valley is that when they get closer, it makes it slightly harder to attack. But the main advantage of this, like I say, is they've got such a long way to come, and you can see so far up that you can see people so far away that you can plan your attack or your defence, as the case might be, before anyone ever gets here. You can also keep an eye, like you can see off there in the distance, little villages. So obviously the immediate village down in front of us here, the big one, that's Middleham. But off in the distance there, back over there, you'll have the likes of Redmire, Wensley, West Witton will be over in this kind of eyesight, slightly further over this side direction. So it would have been overlooking all those, and this had backup at the time, because the backup for Middleham Castle was Richmond Castle, which we've previously done. Well, what we're going to go do now, we'll go have a look next at this original door. I'll show you how these toilets work. We'll have a close look at this apartment block. Right, so we're now out the main centre section of the castle, and this is the section we were looking down on before, which would have been the apartments. When you get closer up to it, there's more evidence about the apartments. So you've got evidence there, you see, of where the sloped house style, as I would call it, roof would have been, and you can see at the top there as well where there's a flat lip there, where there would have been the second roof on top of the floor above. I'm guessing that would have been for the flooring for the patrol roof. And then you go in here and you have your first apartment. This, like I was explaining before, would have been your courtyard. The other side, I think now, probably would have been a courtyard too. And this here, this is what I was talking about before. So this is what they would have used. This is what a latrine toilet was. So it was like a little alcove like this. You came in here, you stuck your backside over there, and all your waste went down through here, and there's a hole on the other side of the wall. And then some poor soul had to come along and clean it all up with a shovel. Unless, of course, it was pea, then they just left it soak into the ground, which is why the ditches used to smell so much around these old castles. But needs must, and they had to get rid of it somehow, I suppose. So this was then, here was your courtyard as we go up. And then we'll come across here, and you can see down here. Now, I don't know if it's the same in all castles, but in a lot of castles, things like this are normally presses for something like cider or wine. So normally what happens is you put the fruit in here, and then it depends on the layout. Sometimes there's a stone that goes around here and it's attached to a pivot in the middle. Now, I don't know if that was the case here because there's grass there, so I can't see. Otherwise, people would just walk around in circles crushing it. Normally if it's wine, it'll be done by foot. If it's apples, normally you have the stone because apples are that much harder to crush. But that's what you would have had. And if I jump down because the step's not there. So and as we come over this side, you can see here you would have had an entrance here from here into this area. Now, that I'm almost certain would have been some sort of fireplace the way it's laid out. And you can see the little holes either side again. So I'm guessing that would have been a main fire. This definitely would have been a fire because you can see how the chimney goes up and then splits either side for the two smaller fires. And that would have been hidden behind, and I'm guessing these stones that are above now, there would have been another route, I think through these side sections here in the wall maybe, where the smoke would have escaped and gone out the window because it splits literally to go out the windows, because obviously in those days there's no glass, so the window was a viable ventilation option for a fire. And then you had your last apartment, which would have been this one, and this would have been luxury back then. Again, with your own little window here, and this again is another fire. So this was floor. This is a massive fire. This must have been the main one. So you've got your fire would have been on the floor here, and you've got a massive chimney. You can see there it goes all the way up to the top. And this was all the apartment block. But you can see here how bits have been removed, so I'm guessing there's more to the outside here maybe, specifically that corner and the corner over there, there's bits missing. So, and there's a lot missing from this side too, where there are some other bits and pieces too. There is another 2 apartments here, I believe, as well actually. So I've been up to like 4 or 5. I'm not sure if it had a stable or not though. I think this was from back in the time where the horses used to stay outside the castle and then you came in. I think that's how that one worked. So, yeah, very, very extensive castle, very luxurious. The Nevilles themselves were the most influential family from North Yorkshire in the winning of the Battle of the Roses, obviously famous between Lancashire and Yorkshire. So they played a heavy, heavy part in that as well. But the castle itself is stunning. I wish you could see it in its, or I could have seen it in its glory before it was a rubble. But there's still so much to see. Right, so you can see this kind of modest looking little windows, arched windows. So, there's nothing that says, not that I've found anyway. Well, there's a little hidden away plaque here, maybe this is it. Let me have a look. This is what's known as the South Courtyard. No. Yeah, we were right though, see. This is where the great apartments were, the 15th century, so we were right about that. Leading members of the Neville family, including Richard, that'll be Richard III, and the Duke of Gloucester may have lived in the luxurious apartments, and their rooms were warmed by fires lit with candlelight and hung with tapestry. See, I told you, very luxurious. This is the kind of thing that they wanted then. This was This was their millionaire's mansion, essentially, for that time. But this modest looking building had nothing to do with luxury. This modest little building here would once upon a time have been the chapel. So I'm guessing by the way I'm looking at this. Right, so I'm looking at the layout. You've got a curved stone here and another curved stone there. So that would have been 2 windows there originally to come out here. This probably would have been your main entrance in, I'm guessing. And there was a little door there. And looking at these arches, I'm guessing that the altar probably would have been this side. And then there was another room above. I don't know what the room above was, but there would have been another room above. Right up on the top here, kind of the level of where that wooden staircase comes out. There would have been another one above there. But otherwise, this would have been the church chapel. And you can see here now this ditch that I was pointing out to you, which is quite extensive. So some of this is now missing, it's not all here. So this ditch at one time would have gone all the way around the outside of the castle. These days, it starts over there, goes all the way around, goes along most of the front of the castle, and then it stops. Because obviously people have built houses and things since then, but this would have gone all the way around the outside. Here is where they would have had the original entrance to the castle. So this obviously being a ditch, you would have had a drawbridge here, like you see in like the old school kind of kids TV programs, and like when you look like the old films of like Robin Hood and stuff, before Kevin Costner, you used to get like the wooden drawbridge. They used to lower down and cross the thing, and that's exactly what they had here. So you had a wooden drawbridge that would have been lowered from this side, and they would have lowered down on this side, and that would have been the main entrance in. So this is what I mean when I say, for instance, that wall wouldn't have been there, hence the ditch. And you can see actually remnants, if we come a bit closer, of where the original castle wall would have been on this side. The other side, well, might be in existence under there, but I'm guessing it's probably gone. And for the actual drawbridge, you can see here, there's a straight slot there, and a straight slot there. And those would have been the mounting points to the floor for the drawbridge. It would have been sunk in, and that would have allowed it to go down and be raised up by chains on this side. So I'm guessing this would have actually been a taller building once upon a time, maybe even attached to this. And then on this corner here, you can see hidden behind what's now the reception building, you would have had another fireplace there as well. And there would have been some more rooms up above, which are no longer accessible, unfortunately. Right, so we're now on the outside of the castle at the back. Our ditch we were just looking at is over here by the farm gate. You can see just here where the ditch is. That would have come out here and all the way along here and then back round to the front, as I said. So what you're looking at on the end of the castle there is the only round tower called the Prince's Tower in the entire castle. And these supports you can see sticking out the walls were built when these luxury apartments and things were added as support to hold the extra weight, because that wouldn't have been there. The round is from the original castle, the round tower. The rest of this wall isn't. And you can see here as well, as they've gone on and they've modernised through time, they filled in and bricked in certain windows, and then they've gone and built new ones above. The other interesting thing from the back, which is why I've brought you up here, is beyond all the fields and stuff, you can see this mound at the very back there with trees on top of it. So that's called William Hill. Now that was the site of the original castle of Middleham. That was would have been a wooden affair, and the lines you can see going around, because they're quite straight, and they kind of arch them as they go round. That's excavations, as was the way of building wooden castles back in the day. But that would have been the original castle here, and then the castle that you know of today is this one, which would have, like I say, final building on this would have been back in the 1500s. So it's been a long time since anything has been added to this castle, but it's still an impressive sight, and the view's just spectacular. Right, so that's it from me here at Adventure 82 in Middleham Castle. As we can say, hopefully I'll get this one back and it'll have sound on it, because you'll have seen from the beginning video that there were some technical issues. Thanks, Sony. Yeah, so Middleham Castle, interesting little place. Definitely come and have a look at this one. Even if you're not into castles, it's quite nice just to come here, have a drink. They do really nice ice cream, by the way. I had this last year. So you can always do that as well. So just come here for ice cream. If you're a member of English Heritage, you go and get in for free as well, which is a bonus. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. And there'll be a little video sometime during the middle of the week to let you know the results of that poll I did as well for video types, and let you know what we're going to be doing going forward. And there'll also be an update coming soon on the Adventure 82 mobile truck thing. Anyway, you know what I'm on about if you've seen it. If you haven't, a couple of weeks back I did a video on a truck we're doing up as a South camper. So if you haven't seen it and you're interested, go have a look at that. Eric is saying link below. I can't do that yet. You have to earn the right to put a link into the video. The only thing I can do is put a link in the description. So if I remember, I'll do that, because my memory's not just a sieve, it's a massive gaping hole. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. Take care of yourselves. See you soon.